The southern heat draped over the town of South Fulton, its oppressive weight marrying the sunburnt asphalt to a sky heavy with Georgia's languor. Here, life ebbed and flowed with an almost begrudging rhythm, as if the sleepy town bore the memories of simpler times and was reluctant to let go. Amidst this symphony of somnolence, Christopher Warren found himself a stranger, a knot of unease in South Fulton's tranquil tapestry. Christopher was a man of quiet demeanor, his generosity often shining through his actions, while his words remained sparse. His eyes, hazel mirrors reflecting years of uncovered truths, scanned the South Fulton landscape, a physical articulation of his deeply ingrained sense of fairness. His past was a puzzle, a trauma-induced loss snatching away his mother during his childhood. A part of him lingered there still, in the crevices of loss and longing, echoing in the hollowness he carried. South Fulton, with its latent mysteries, seemed to echo his own unfinished chapters. He found himself at the heart of the town, standing before an unassuming building. Its battered sign read, "Hope's Haven, a home for the homeless." This modest structure, he suspected, was the epicenter of a growing scandal, a desecration of trust, and perhaps, he was soon to realize, something far more sinister. A peculiar sense of familiarity washed over him as he opened the door, the scent of worn-out wood and stale coffee pervading his senses. Within the building's age-stained walls, life unfolded in somber hues. He was welcomed by a matronly figure. Her smile was threadbare but genuine. She introduced herself as Mrs. Ada, the caretaker of the shelter. Their conversation flowed, taking on a rhythm of its own, interspersed with the intermittent clatter of dishes and hushed whispers of the shelter's inhabitants. "So, you're here to make a story out of us, Mr. Warren?" Mrs. Ada's eyes twinkled with a curiosity that belied her age. "More of a story about the town, Mrs. Ada," he said, his tone a quiet assurance. "The shelter here seems to be at the heart of South Fulton. It's only fair that I start my narrative from here." As the sun began to dip beneath the Georgian skyline, casting elongated shadows across the shelter, he found himself deeply engrossed in the stories of South Fulton. Each tale seemed woven into the town's fabric, each narrative a strand that contributed to an intricate tapestry. But beneath the worn threads of simple lives and simpler aspirations, he began to sense a darker yarn being spun. The shelter was but the surface, and beneath, hidden in plain sight, lurked secrets that churned the blood of a seasoned journalist. His departure from the shelter, under the glow of a crescent moon, carried with it a newfound resolution. Tomorrow would see him back in these haunted halls, delving deeper into the veiled narratives, tugging at the threads that hinted at a looming cosmic shadow. With the dawn came a wash of searing light that painted the town in shades of stark reality. Christopher found himself returning to Hope's Haven, its crumbling facade now a familiar sight in this sleepy southern town. His gaze fell upon an assortment of its residents, each face a chapter in the forgotten narrative of South Fulton. Among the huddle of homeless souls, one figure stirred his attention. A woman of an indeterminable age, her hair a chaotic nest of graying strands, her skin etched with tales of harsh winters and cruel summers. Rosalind, as she introduced herself, had a glimmer of wild wisdom in her sapphire eyes that sparked Christopher's journalistic instincts. Their conversation was a dance between two strangers, slowly unveiling layers of truth and untruth, like the lifting of a curtain to a shadow play. "Figures in the dark, you say, Rosalind?" His voice was laced with caution, the statement hovering between incredulity and intrigue. "More real than you and me, sir." Her voice trembled like autumn leaves in a stiff breeze, her eyes reflecting the haunting truth of her experiences. They come and go, slipping in and out of the darkness, their shadows lingering in the corners long after they vanished. He found himself drawn into Rosalind's world, a labyrinth of unlikely tales and unsettling occurrences. He could not shake the resonance her words had with his mother's stories, a dark melody echoing from his past, tugging at the edges of his rational mind. The evening found him buried in his notes, his gaze fixed on the ceiling of his modest inn-room. The bulb flickered, casting a rhythm of light and shadow across his contemplative face. South Fulton was no longer a mere backdrop for a scandalous exposé, but a growing enigma, a puzzle box concealing untold secrets and chilling possibilities. He returned to the shelter the next day, his meetings with Rosalind becoming a routine. The sun traveled across the azure canvas, casting alternating patterns of light and shade on the town, paralleling the reveal and conceal of its veiled truths. Amid the chaos of overlapping narratives and the dissonance of facts and superstitions, his intuition guided him. Each interaction with Rosalind felt like a plunge into an abyss of hidden realities. Her tales, absurd as they were, became the fulcrum of his investigation. The nocturnal blanket of South Fulton cradled the world in a hush of eerie tranquility. The lanterns of Hope's Haven cast their glow upon Rosalind and Christopher, their silhouettes dancing on the old brick wall. The air was laden with the scent of impending rain and a shared sense of inexplicable dread. They stood before a peculiar alleyway, a pathway shadowed by the colossal arms of gnarled trees and age-old buildings, a place Rosalind claimed was the haunt of unseen figures. "There it is, Mr. Warren." Rosalind's voice held an almost reverential fear as she pointed towards the end of the narrow alley. At first glance, the darkness seemed innocuous, merely an absence of light. But as his gaze adjusted, a strange pulsation emerged, an oscillating dance of the void. It was a rift, an amorphous rupture in the fabric of reality, humming with an uncanny energy. The sight resonated with a chilling familiarity, the echo of his mother's stories reverberating in his mind. The rift throbbed, emitting an almost inaudible whisper, an eldritch hymn that spoke of realms unfathomable and entities inhuman. From its depth emerged shadowy figures, their forms fluctuating as they integrated with the obscurity, vanishing into the belly of the town. The encounter with the rift marked a significant shift in his investigation. What had begun as a quest for justice against financial impropriety now loomed as a cosmic journey into the unknown. South Fulton was no longer a simple southern town, but a hub of intradimensional activity, its humble facade hiding an ancient and fearsome reality. The following days found him immersed in the town's library, its dusty shelves and musty tomes guarding forgotten tales of South Fulton. The quiet librarian Miriam became his guide through the labyrinth of old myths and chilling prophecies. Her knowledge of the town's arcane history eerily comprehensive. Conversations flowed between them, an intellectual dance that unveiled the town's haunted lineage, gateways to chaotic dimensions, and the presence of transdimensional beings. The revelation of the shelter's interdimensional connection set a new course for his journey. The rift he had encountered was no mere anomaly, but a pulsating vein that connected this world with a realm of cosmic terror. The figures that emerged were not figments of a homeless woman's imagination, but harbingers of a reality that transcended human comprehension. The dawn in South Fulton broke like a shattered illusion, its golden rays casting an ironic radiance on a reality far removed from the ordinary. Christopher found himself at the threshold of a terrible truth, a cosmic labyrinth that began and ended with Hope's Haven. A series of clandestine meetings with shelter residents, the homeless folk who often vanished only to reappear altered subtly, led him to a chilling connection. The shelter with its nurturing facade was a fertile ground for the dark travelers, covered for by a cult operating under the guise of care and compassion. His conversation with a mysteriously enlightened resident, whose identity remained shrouded in fear, unveiled the horrifying revelation. "It's a crossroad, Mr. Warren, an intersection of realms. They've been preparing, ushering them, waiting for the convergence." The corruption he had initially come to expose was merely a surface ripple of a profoundly grotesque reality. His pursuit of justice had unknowingly guided him into a vortex of cosmic terror. The shelter's fraudulent activities were, in truth, a smokescreen for an ancient cult's machinations, an orchestrated rite to fully merge the dimensions. With his journalistic armor now bared to its vulnerable core, he stood at the precipice of understanding, staring into the abyss of the cosmic puzzle. The horror of it all seemed to gaze back at him through the numerous eyes of the cult members, their intent to use him as a catalyst in their terrible rites now chillingly clear. He found an unexpected ally in Miriam, the seemingly timid librarian, who turned out to be a keeper of arcane secrets. Armed with her knowledge and Rosalind's experiences, he planned to combat the impending doom. The lines between the rational and irrational blurred. The boundaries of his reality stretched taut as he took on the mantle of a reluctant hero in a story far older than the town itself. The midnight hour approached, bringing with it a dense veil of portentous silence. The usually tranquil town was locked in an uneasy stillness, an eerie prelude to a symphony of cosmic chaos. Amid this looming dread, Christopher and his unlikely companions found themselves at the threshold of Hope's Haven. Armed with cryptic incantations from ancient manuscripts and guided by Rosalind's intuitive knowledge of the Dark Travelers, they slipped into the building. The shelter, once a haven for the homeless, was now the womb of an impending catastrophe, the echoes of a primal drumbeat resonating in the quiet corridors. Within the heart of the shelter, the Dark Travelers had commenced their terrible rite. The air vibrated with a symphony of eldritch tongues, a convergence of realities materializing before Christopher's horrified gaze. The rift, now a monstrous aperture, pulsed with nauseating energy, its iridescent depths revealing fleeting images of a realm unfathomable. With his heart pounding in synchrony with the dreadful cadence, he stepped forward, Miriam's incantation on his lips. Each word felt like a stone on his tongue, a plea to cosmic forces that human minds could barely comprehend. The confrontation was a dance of wills and an endurance of fears. Shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, mirroring the terrors that haunted the dark corners of his mind. And then, in an echoing crescendo of cosmic chaos and human desperation, it ended. The rift convulsed, collapsing onto itself in a blinding spectacle of otherworldly light, its shrill death cry echoing in the stunned silence. Christopher, Rosalind, and Miriam emerged from the shattered remnants of Hope's Haven, their minds carrying the weight of a reality forever scarred by their experience. The shelter was no more, its existence swallowed by the rift's death throes, leaving only an empty lot as a grim reminder of the night's events. In the aftermath of the cosmic storm, South Fulton returned to its somnolence, bearing the spectral scars of a night that would fade into the town's haunted folklore. Christopher Warren, forever changed, found himself leaving the town with a story that would remain untold, its truth too terrifying for the world to comprehend. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, show your support with a like and subscribe, and stay notified by hitting the bell icon. Expect more cosmic horror from Eldritch Tales Factory, and feel free to explore our other stories. See you in the next video.